Number one, he treats her like a terminally ill child and wants to keep her that way, whether she likes it or not. And she doesn't. So here's the deal. Edward has decided that he is always right, and Bella isn't. This is doubly true in matters of her life and how she lives it. That is to say, Bella doesn't want to live her life as a human, but Edward wants her to, so she'll do it regardless of how she feels about it. In fact, he's so strong in his conviction that only the birth of the Antichrist and Renee's thingy causes him to change his decision. And might I add that carrying the demon spawn to full term was a very conscious strategic move on Bella's part, because she knew it was the only way she'd get her wish. But I'll cover that in a later installment. I often hear fans saying that Edward can't live without Bella, that he couldn't let her die because it would devastate him. To counter, he was more willing to let her die of old age, something that terrified her on a very deep level. Of course, in counter to that point, they say he wanted her to live a long, happy life, and to that, I would say that she never led that life. She never would. Excuse me. As long as she lived, she would always be under the watchful gaze of the Volturi, who want her specialness all to themselves. She would always wonder when she was going to be eaten or turned, no matter what Edward did. So why did he want to keep her human? His official excuse is that he's worried about the condition of her soul, because he believes vampires are damned creatures. I personally like to think he wanted to keep her vulnerable, weak, and completely dependent on him for protection. He likes carrying her around on his back and singing her to sleep every night, and keeping tabs on her wherever she goes. Activities which make him sound a lot more like a father figure and less like a lover. Does she like it? Well, yes and no. Yes, because she likes being treated like a fairy tale princess and being the center of attention. And no, because she knows that he's being a controlling bastard and she'd like to see her male best friend whenever she fucking well pleases. Damn it! But that doesn't matter to Edward. So, as long as he gets his way in the end. I think he gets off on being needed by someone. Her frail human beauty appealed to him in a way that reminds me of how consumption is considered to be a romantic disease. Consumption, or tuberculosis, eats away at the lungs, causing an infected individual to cough up blood. It makes him or her very weak and forces others to take care of him or her until, at least in Victorian times, they eventually died from it. It was all very tragic and painful, but for some reason the condition appeals to a certain set of people. The same sort of mindset is going on in Twilight. Bella is fragile and weak compared to the Cullens, so they must take care of her until she either dies from being human, or until someone steps up to the plate and turns her. This is especially apparent in Breaking Dawn, specifically while Bella is pregnant with her hellspawn. Her condition is described in just the right amount of horrific detail to garner her pity. That, coupled with the supposed fact that she's doing this for her unnatural child, makes the target audience think that what she does is a wonderful, selfless act, and that Bella is a strong person, even though we all know she isn't. Listen to these descriptions, and I apologize for what you're about to hear. There were deep circles under her eyes, dark circles that jumped out because her face was all haggard. Was she thinner? Her skin seemed tight, like her cheekbones might break right through it. Most of her dark hair was pulled away from her face into a messy knot, with a few strands stuck limply to her forehead and neck, to the sheen of sweat that covered her skin. There was something about her fingers and wrists that looked so fragile it was scary. Breaking Dawn PDF, page 189. Excuse me. Bella's body was swollen, her torso ballooning out in a strange, sick way. It strained against the faded gray sweatshirt It was way too big for her shoulders and arms. The rest of her seemed thinner, like the bulge had grown out of what it had sucked from her. It took me a second to realize what the deformed part was. I didn't understand until she folded her hands tenderly around her bloated stomach, one above and one below, like she was cradling it. I saw it then, but I still couldn't believe it. I'd seen her just a month ago. There was no way she could be pregnant, not that pregnant. Except she was. Snip. But it was worse than that, so much worse. Her distorted body, the bones jabbing against the skin of her face. I could only guess that she looked like this, so pregnant, so sick, because whatever was inside her was taking her life to feed its own. Breaking Down PDF, page 192. Yet, we're supposed to see her situation as tragic and beautiful, not stupid and disgusting. After all, she's laying down her life for her child, right? Wrong, but again, I'll cover that in greater detail in a later installment. Edward is not happy about the child, mainly because he knows it will force him to either let Bella die or to turn her, and he's not content with either option. Of course, in the end, she finally gets what she wants, and magically everything is better. But getting her way is pretty unusual compared to all the times he gets his. I'm thinking specifically about bribing Alice to kidnap Bella, and the time in Twilight, he threatened to chase her down and drag her back to his car if she didn't get in. Oh, and prom. Let's not forget about prom.